I still remember the moment I held that paycheck in my hand. My first real salary from a legitimate job. No shortcuts, no relapses, no regrets. For most people, it might have just been a piece of paper. But for me, it was validation. 2 years sober, a marketing position I fought tooth and nail for, and now, tangible proof that I was finally rebuilding my life. Naturally, I wanted to share that with the people who meant the most to me, or at least the people I thought should mean the most, my parents. I didn't plan something small. No, I booked a 4-day stay at Sunset Shores, a resort they had always dreamed of visiting but never could justify spending money on. I reserved dinner at their favorite restaurant, even printed the confirmation tickets on fine linen paper and tucked them in a gold envelope. This was supposed to be the turning point, the moment they would finally see me not as the family screw-up, but as someone they could be proud of. I thought it would melt years of icy silence, awkward conversations, and disappointed sighs. I couldn't have been more wrong. They arrived at dinner 7 minutes late. Not much, but enough to let me know where I still stood on their priority list. Dad greeted me with a nod. Mom gave the usual perfunctory cheek touch. No hug, no smile, just polite disinterest. I tried to keep my nerves steady as I shared the news. "I got the job," I said with a smile. "The marketing role I told you about." Dad raised his eyebrows. "The one from last month? That's surprising." No congratulations, no warmth. Just that one word, surprising. It stung more than I expected. I powered through, telling them I'd gotten my first paycheck, hoping maybe that would finally earn some respect. My mom's response? "And you haven't spent it all already?" 2 years sober, clean, working hard, and yet, to them, I was still one relapse away from failure. Their skepticism was louder than their words. I tried to redirect the conversation, but when they asked how much I earned and then immediately compared it to the cost of my last rehab stay, my heart sank. "We could have gone on a cruise," my mother said, dabbing at her mouth with a napkin. "But instead, we spent that money trying to fix you. Fix me. As if I were a broken appliance." It was at that moment I realized the envelope in my pocket didn't symbolize a bridge between us. It symbolized a boundary. I excused myself, walked into the bathroom, and stared at my reflection. 2 years clean, standing tall, and yet still hoping for love that would never come. I tore the envelope in pieces and left the dinner early. The next day, I called my best friend Susie, the one who stayed when no one else did. "How do you feel about a beach trip?" I asked. She cried happy tears. I brought her to Sunset Shores instead, and in those 4 days of ocean air and laughter, I finally felt something I'd been chasing for years: peace. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are the ones who place the heaviest conditions on their love. That dinner showed me I could spend my entire life trying to earn approval I would never receive. Or, I could walk away. I chose me, and I've never looked back. It had been 2 weeks since the dinner, since I tore up the resort tickets I had planned to give my parents, walked away from that white linen restaurant, and took Susie, the one who stood by me when no one else did, instead. Sunset Shores was everything I hoped it would be: calm, beautiful, healing. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a problem waiting to happen. I felt like a person, a real one, worthy of joy, of rest, of love. Susie and I spent 4 days drinking coconut water under palm trees, laughing until our stomachs hurt, and capturing dozens of pictures. Just two friends choosing to live fully, unapologetically. She posted a few photos on social media. Us grinning in oversized sunglasses, building a ridiculous sandcastle, clinking glasses at the fancy beachside dinner. I thought nothing of it, until my phone exploded. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from my mother. The tone ranged from indignant to accusatory. "How dare you take a luxury vacation without even telling us? After everything we've done for you? Are you dealing again? Where did that money come from?" I stood frozen in the hallway outside my office, phone buzzing in my hand, heart pounding in my chest. It didn't take long to figure out what had happened. My parents had seen Susie's photos online. Somehow they took a few beach pictures as proof that I had relapsed, as confirmation that I was once again spiraling out of control. But I wasn't. Not this time. I answered her call, my voice calm despite the storm inside me. "The money came from my job," I said flatly. "The marketing job you dismissed at dinner." There was a pause. Then her voice shifted. Softer, sweeter, curious. "Wait, you actually make that kind of money?" And there it was. That subtle pivot, from suspicion to opportunity. She didn't apologize for accusing me. She didn't ask how I was doing. She simply said, "Well, your father and I never got a proper anniversary trip. Maybe we could finally take one now. With a little help." I felt the air leave my lungs. Not because I was shocked, but because deep down I knew this would happen. I had hoped for a different outcome, but I knew. In that moment it became painfully clear. They didn't want me. They wanted access to me, to my income, my stability, my success. They couldn't be proud of my recovery, but they'd sure try to profit from it. That night I blocked their numbers. Quietly, no drama, just peace. Susie came over with ice cream. Cookie dough, of course. We looked through more photos from the trip, laughed at the blurry ones, the ones with our hair sticking up, the ones that didn't make it to Instagram. The real moments, the joyful ones. "You're different now," she said. "I think I'm just finally remembering who I was," I replied. Because that's what healing sometimes looks like. Not loud declarations or cinematic closure, but choosing yourself over and over again. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. I don't know if my parents will ever understand, but I'm no longer living for their understanding. I'm living for me. A week after I blocked my parents, I sat alone in my apartment, sipping coffee and scrolling through emails, finally free from the barrage of texts, voicemails, and accusations. The silence was golden, until a knock at the door shattered it. I peeked through the peephole and my stomach dropped. My mother, my father, both standing in the hallway, arms crossed, lips tight, expressions that hovered between indignation and desperation. I debated not opening the door, but something inside me, curiosity, closure, or just old reflex, pushed me to turn the knob. "Alex," Mom started, her voice already cracking. "We need to talk." I stepped aside wordlessly. They walked in like they owned the space, scanning the room as if calculating its worth. I didn't offer them a seat. "You've been avoiding us," my father said flatly. "I've been protecting myself," I replied. They exchanged glances. Then my mom's expression shifted, more sadness than scorn. "Why are you doing this? We're your family." "No," I said. "You're people who raised me, but you don't get to use that title like it's a free pass to guilt and manipulate me." Her jaw clenched. "We were hurt, Alex. You just cut us off. No explanation." I laughed bitterly. "I gave you explanations for years. When I asked for support and recovery, you rolled your eyes. When I got clean, you doubted it. When I finally achieved something real, a job, stability, you turned it into a debt collection." Dad cut in. "We just thought if you had the money you could help. That's what families do." "No," I said again. "Families love you for who you are, not what you can give. You only showed interest in me when you thought I had something to offer you. That's not love. That's a transaction." They stood silent. For once, they didn't have a comeback. My mom finally said, "We saw the photos. You looked happy." I nodded. Because I was. I brought someone who actually supported me, someone who never treated me like a mistake, and I didn't have to buy her love with a resort ticket. Her eyes filled with tears. For a second, I felt the familiar pull to comfort her, to take it all back, to fix the discomfort, but I didn't move. Dad sighed. "So what now? You just cut us out forever?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I know this. I'm not your rehab project. I'm not your second-class son. I'm a person who rebuilt his life from scratch. And if you can't respect that, we have nothing to talk about." They eventually left. No shouting, no drama. Just a door closing on a conversation that had been waiting to happen for years. Later that night, Susie came over again. She didn't ask for details. She just handed me a cup of tea and said, "You look like someone who just chose himself." "I did," I whispered. And for the first time, the weight I'd carried for decades, the need for approval, the ache for conditional love, felt like it was no longer mine to hold. 2 weeks after the confrontation at my apartment, something shifted. Not in them, but in me. The space that used to be occupied by guilt had become quieter, not empty, just clearer. My therapist said it was the start of healing. I wasn't so sure. All I knew was that I wasn't constantly replaying the argument anymore, and I hadn't once felt the urge to unblock their numbers. Instead, I found myself investing in the life I'd always been too distracted to fully live. I started arriving to work early, not because I was avoiding chaos at home, but because I wanted to. I joined Susie's trivia night at the local pub. I laughed more. I slept better. I even stopped checking their Facebook pages late at night. For the first time, my time belonged to me. Then came the text from an unknown number. "Can we talk? Just coffee? Nothing more." Tyler. I stared at it for a long time. My brother hadn't said a word since the day they showed up at my door. He'd always been the one benefiting from my silence, from my ability to smooth things over. But now he wanted to talk. I debated deleting the message, but some part of me, the part that still remembered growing up with him before everything soured, said yes. We met at a coffee shop near my office. He arrived 5 minutes early. That alone was shocking. He looked tired, older maybe, but there was a humility in his posture I didn't recognize. He didn't wear designer sunglasses or complain about traffic. Instead, he just said, "Thanks for coming," and stirred his coffee like he couldn't quite meet my eyes. "I messed up," he said after a long silence. "I let them pit us against each other for years, and I let you clean up my life more times than I can count." I didn't respond right away. The apology hung in the air, fragile and unfamiliar, but it felt real. "I don't expect forgiveness," he added. "I just wanted to say it, out loud." "That's a start," I said. He looked surprised, maybe even grateful. We talked, really talked, for an hour. About our parents. About the way they rewarded his chaos and punished my reliability. About how neither of us got what we needed, just in different forms. We weren't fixed, but we were facing something we'd both ignored for too long. That night, I told Susie everything. She nodded, thoughtful. "Healing doesn't always mean going back," she said. "Sometimes it just means understanding where the pain came from." And she was right. I wasn't going back. Not to being the fixer. Not to being the forgotten son who gave and gave. But I could move forward, with clear boundaries and a little more peace. Because healing, I realized, isn't about waiting for an apology from those who hurt you. It's about deciding that their failure to love you properly isn't the measure of your worth. It's about showing up for yourself, even when they never did. And maybe, just maybe, it's about taking that Sunset Shores photo off your nightstand, not because you want to forget, but because you're ready to start collecting new memories that don't include their approval. 3 months after I cut ties with my parents, the silence became a kind of clarity. Not the eerie silence of guilt, but the calm that comes when you stop asking for love from people incapable of giving it. I didn't feel free every day, but I was starting to understand what freedom could look like, making decisions for myself, without waiting for permission or bracing for judgment. I'd been pouring myself into work, therapy, and rebuilding. Then one morning, a letter arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. My mother's. Inside was a check for the exact amount I had spent on that resort vacation, the one I originally planned to take them on. No apology. Just a note. Reimbursement for our portion. Thank you for the opportunity to see ourselves through your eyes. I stared at the paper for a long time. I wasn't sure if I should laugh or cry. It wasn't an admission of guilt, not fully, but it was something. For people who had never acknowledged my pain, this was a shift, a sliver of recognition. I called Susie. They sent a check. There was a long pause on the other end. "Do you think it's a peace offering, or just an attempt to buy their way back in?" I sighed. Maybe both. She didn't tell me what to do. That's why I trusted her. But after a few days, I sent a short text to my mom. "I got your check. Would you like to meet for coffee next weekend?" They said yes. The meeting was awkward, hesitant. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. My father, more tired. There were no grand declarations of change, but they were quiet. They listened more than they spoke, and when they did talk, it was different, measured, almost unsure. It didn't fix everything. Honestly, it didn't fix anything yet, but it opened a window where before there had only been a locked door. That was enough for me to take one cautious step forward. Over the next few weeks, I established firm boundaries. I made it clear that any relationship we built would be slow, conditional on mutual respect. There would be no money, no emotional manipulation. If the old patterns returned, I would walk away again, without hesitation this time. I didn't tell them that I still flinched when my phone buzzed, half expecting a guilt trip. I didn't tell them that I still had nightmares about those dinners, the cutting remarks, the moments when love felt like a transaction. But I told them enough to be honest. That was all I owed. Susie asked me one night if I regretted giving them another chance. I thought about it. No, I said. Not because they deserve it, but because I do. Because I deserve to see if healing is possible. I deserve to try even if it fails. And most of all, I deserve to be proud of who I've become, regardless of whether they ever truly see it. The truth is, forgiveness isn't a gift for them. It's a freedom for me. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real ending I never thought I'd get. It had been 6 months since I walked away from the version of family that only saw my worth in what I could provide. 6 months since I blocked their numbers, canceled the payments, and started building a life that finally felt like mine. And in that time, I began to learn something I never expected. Peace is quiet, but it's not empty. It's full of moments you never noticed when you were constantly bracing for the next crisis. The guilt didn't vanish overnight. There were nights I still woke up wondering if I had gone too far, if cutting ties made me the villain. But then I'd remind myself, the people who should have protected me used me. And when I stopped giving, they called me selfish, not because I was, but because I was no longer useful to them. Around that time, Tyler, my younger brother, the golden child, reached out. A simple message. Can we talk? I hesitated. Every interaction with Tyler in the past had ended with me footing a bill, cleaning up a mess, or being dismissed. But curiosity won. We met at a quiet coffee shop. He looked different, more tired, more grounded. For the first time, he didn't lead with jokes or excuses. He just sat across from me, fidgeting with his cup. "You were right," he said. He admitted he'd taken everything for granted. That being cut off, financially and emotionally, forced him to confront just how much I had been doing all those years. "Mom and Dad made me believe it was your job to take care of everything," he confessed. "But I see now it wasn't fair. Not to you, not to any of us." The apology wasn't perfect, but it was real. That conversation didn't magically undo years of resentment, but it did something just as important. It opened the door to something new. A sibling relationship that wasn't based on hierarchy or obligation, but on shared experience and mutual growth. Around the same time, my parents moved into a smaller apartment. They stopped asking for help, not because they didn't need it, but because they finally understood I wouldn't be their safety net anymore. I helped them find affordable furniture, offered practical support, but only when I chose to, not because it was expected. The shift in our dynamic was subtle but profound. For the first time in years, I was interacting with them not as their provider, but as their adult child with clear boundaries. And for once, they didn't push back. One night, I sat with Sarah, my partner now, on our balcony. The city stretched out before us, and she turned to me with a smile. "You're lighter," she said. "Happier." I nodded. Because I stopped chasing their love and started accepting my own. She took my hand and squeezed it. That's the kind of love that lasts. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when it matters, who respect your boundaries, celebrate your growth, and never make you beg for their approval. And sometimes, when you stop letting people use you, they finally learn how to see you. I won't pretend everything is perfect, but I'm no longer playing a role I never chose. I'm no longer the fixer, the bank, the afterthought. I'm just me. And that, for the first time, is enough. If this story resonated with you, or reminded you of your own journey towards setting boundaries and reclaiming your worth, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful Reddit family drama stories. Every week, we bring you real voices, raw emotion, and the courage it takes to walk away from what no longer serves you, because your story matters, and you are not alone.